Well, let's jump to the conversation proper. And I'm going to start with this unfortunate situation that happened in Accra, Ghana, where Army clearly suspends its recruitment process. And of course, seen 9 persons die and 22 injured in a major stampede during the recruitment exercise. First, what's your position with these kind of stampede, particularly on the path of people wanting to get jobs? Now, it is not just happening in Ghana. You would also recall that we had such incidents in Nigeria as well. What's your position with this kind of situation, and how can this clearly be managed going forward, both in countries like Ghana and Nigeria?
The first thing that we must understand from these incidents is the fact that all is not well with Africa.
Okay.
In terms of job mobility, employment, and economic stability, all is not well with Africa. You see, you recall that it was during this, I think it was the Interior Ministry, when people were jostling to be enlisted in immigration service in Nigeria,
yes,
that this kind of stampede happened. Now imagine you are recruiting less than 300 and you have about 7,000
showing up for the same job,
struggling to. So the first ordeal that will come to the minds of those Ghanaians, particularly youths, is you must get into the stadium before you are even recognized to be a part of the event.
Okay.
And so you imagine that you look at sea of heads and you imagine, what are my chances of being enlisted into the force? And don't forget that some of these people, out of want of job, they went there, not because they were patriotic, not because they are not mindful of the hazard of joining the military.
In fact, let me reel out a bit of statistics, particularly the part of the Ghana's youth unemployment rate. It hovers around 12.6%, with underemployment much higher in this particular figure. So is the economy clearly not favoring the young people of Ghana? Because again, there are concerns about the fact that these both countries that we are using as example here have a large number of young people in their population.
Now, let me quickly talk about this underemployment.
Okay.
You see, sometimes, maybe because of my standpoint, maybe because of my exposure to psychology, do you know that sometimes it's better not to be employed than to be underemployed?
How do you mean?
Good. For instance, you are a graduate and somebody employs you as a cleaner. That's underemployment. You are a certified engineer and because of want of job, a company engages you as truck driver.
But these people want to put food on their table.
That's what I'm saying. The optics is what you are painting. But do you know what runs through the mind of a chartered engineer waking up in the morning, having a call from his schoolmate who graduated from the same university at the same time, working in an oil company, and yet you are even better than that person that works in an oil company, and suddenly you now find yourself driving trucks. If you meet on the road, the first thing that assails you as soon as you part ways, no matter how humble the person that works in the oil company is, you ask yourself, is it a crime? What is my schooling worth?
And that's on the part of the psychology that you're mentioning.
Yes. And then you get depressed. You have to contend with depression. from that moment.
Now, Mr. Fanimo, isn't there, based on what you just painted, isn't this a major concern clearly on the recruitment transparency of these countries?
Now, do you know, if I will shock you, I'm sure if there is a Ghanaian that has close watch on this event, some of those guys, to be enlisted in the military as a recruit, the highest qualification should be school sat.
Okay.
You will be shocked that some, in fact, 40 to 60% of those showing up for this recruitment will be degree holders that will hide their degree somewhere and then present school certificate.
In fact, there's also been allegation of nepotism and bribery in the
Of course, it would happen.
Enlistment.
It would happen. Because we're talking about a job of 300 being chased by over 7,000. A lot of factors that should be extraneous will come in. Now, imagine the same degree you are holding and you kept in the house just because you want a job at all costs. That same degree that you couldn't show because you will be overqualified and it will disqualify you.
Right.
Another person who is influential, who has a godfather in the corridors of power, is now enlisting on direct short service. The same number of months you spend in the military depot
Right.
to become a private in the army is almost about the same time that your counterpart, who is your colleague in the university, will spend for direct short service and he'll be having 2 stars, lieutenants. Now, when you and that guy meet, what will run in your mind?
Now, concerns are being raised, Mr. Fanimo. From all of the analysis that you've painted on this white table, there are concerns that are being raised about how many more should die before African leaders clearly see the path of unemployment of these teeming youths as a national emergency.
You see, declaring it as a national emergency may not solve the problem.
So what?
But addressing the fundamentals, the basics that will navigate us away from this malaise should be our concern.
What are these bases?
Good. If there is good quality leadership that will provide a level playing ground, that would create an enabling environment for investment, either foreign or local investment, such that, look, the whole of Africa, what is our population? We are less than 1 billion. China is almost twice the population of Africa.
Right.
Do you know what happens in China that has been happening in the last 10, 15 years? If you have a factory, for instance, you are building refrigerator, and I also have a factory, I'm building refrigerator. I don't have to announce that I'm looking for technicians. You won't say you want technicians. Nobody will show up. Do you know my unique selling point? I will give you accommodation free, and my salary starting point for a technician is 2,000 yuan. You will now look at my own side post and say, I will offer you a car, housing accommodation, and then I'll pay you 2,200 yuan.
So that healthy level of competition makes it clear.
Why? Because, in fact, I watched a documentary some years back, up to about 5 or 6 years ago, and I saw this. Youngsters, youths were passing by. They were just looking at it and all that. And then reporters that did that documentary asked them, does it mean you don't need a job? And 70% of them said, they are just window shopping. That they have their own cottage factory at the back of their house where they produce toys and they make more money than what these people are displaying. That is the level we should focus.
Leadership, clearly.
Leadership
is what you're talking about.
should provide an enabling environment and also shun out policies that will protect SMEs,
Okay.
small and medium enterprises.
Now,
Because let me land.
okay.
Today, if you want to access loan to start a cottage industry at the back of your house, the conditionalities would even drive you back to your village, because there is no facility in Nigeria today that does not carry between 31 and 35%. Which fledgling SME will survive on 31 to 35% interest rate on a loan taken as a startup? Technically, that SME is dead on arrival.
Okay.
Because what the Chinese will not contend with, you have to contend with in Nigeria. Issue of power. You have to buy your own generator. You consider the wear and tear. You consider petrol or diesel. Then you have to consider logistics. How motorable are the roads that you apply between manufacturing and sale of your product?
Oh well, too many to talk about when we talk about the economy of Africa. But again, the government of John Dramani Mahama has suspended that particular recruitment exercise.
Well, that's the natural thing to do.
So some have said that this looks like a tactics to defect from, of course, public outrage, which have been ongoing over time since this particular story popped up. But then again, the fact that the government suspended this it's on one hand. Some have also said this same government promised e-recruitment. Why wasn't that clearly used in this system? Why did the military have throw out a public opening of this recruitment rather than the e-recruitment that was clearly in the manifesto of the John Dramani Mahama government? Which again, the government is investigating clearly.
E-recruitment would bring up some issues.
How?
You know how? Is it not what you impute in the computer that the computer will assess?
Well, you're looking at the part of the rural communities as well.
Yes, where you don't have light, electricity, where internet, you can't access internet. That means you have deliberately cut out those people in the rural communities.
Okay.
And they may not even have enough money to move from the hinterland to the city center, where they could go to maybe what do we call where you access internet?
Cyber cafes.
Cyber cafes. Now, you will be surprised that those in the rural communities may even be healthier, because that able-bodied youth in the village is not breathing carbon monoxide. Is not eating GMO, because it's not exposed to them.
Right.
So by the time you take the vitals, you'll be surprised that those in the rural areas are healthier than those in the city center.
So
but when you now cut them off,
yes,
it means by the time you recruit from available hands, you may have to repeat that recruitment over time. Some may even fall during training and never get up.
All right, then let's move away from Ghana and go straight to South Sudan, where interestingly, the president of South Sudan, Salva Kiir, again has decided to start off another major move, one move that has made the country clearly what it is as it stands in terms of insecurity. The president of South Sudan, I'm talking about Salva Kiir, has dismissed Vice President Benjamin Bolmel from all of his leadership role in the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement. Mr. Fadimo, this same man is the one who, first off, took away power from the first Vice President, Riek Machar, and at this point, he's second vice president has been taken off all leadership role in a party where relatively still have its crack. What's your position with this?
You see, it shows that Kir, he has a inferiority complex and is paranoid. He feels anybody around him is a potential danger to his government and to his continued stay in office.
And the only solution is to take them off power?
Of course, that's what they do. When you want to become a despot, the first thing you do is to make sure that you decimate the ranks of those who can challenge you. And then so everybody that you just beckon on to do one or two things, see it as a privilege. He doesn't have any hold on that government.
Okay,
that's
now,
what he wants. And you know, the man took it to a ridiculous extent, demoting a general to private.
Which again, from his own quarters, they said it's a primitive coup attempt that he's trying to stop. That's from his own position. So if he is seeing or getting intels that the vice president, who he is trusting as it stands,
an African dictator will not take that route.
You think this is a dictatorship plan?
If there is a coup, don't forget that this man runs a government that looks like that of a military.
Right.
You know, so if there was a coup, he wouldn't go through that route of sacking or demoting. He would definitely court-martial them and give them summary execution. But because he has nothing to hang on their neck, and he feels they are threats, veritable threats, so he's continuing to stay in power, he has to find a way of decimating their ranks.
Now, another part of the report also did state that the vice president, I'm talking about Mel Ball, clearly has been accused of siphoning about $1.7 billion, which again, the president...
What is the economy of Southern Sudan?
I mean, they still have crude oil to sell out. so siphoning
that somebody who is not the president will siphon
$1.7 billion.
$7 billion.
And the anti-graft agency is still not looking in his direction. What's the position with this, Mr. Fadimo?
It's just a way of giving the dog a bad name to hang it. The truth about it is, this man wants to decimate the ranks of those who started with him.
Would this clearly...
Post-independence. Because, watch it, God preserving our lives. That man will end up like Pobia.
Giving himself a care.
Yes. That's what is practically planning and plotting. And people are not seeing it. He will end up becoming a despot. From being a despot, he will perpetuate himself in government. That in 20 years, we will have it on record that he's still the current president of that country.
Now,
and he's not letting off.
I really don't want to see this crystal ball of yours, because it's a bit scary for South Sudanese who have been struggling since 2011 that they gained independence, really. But Mr. Fandimo, concerns are being raised again about this demotion of Bol Mel. Would this create any military fragmentation, and could it still lead to a major civil war? Because these are concerns from South Sudanese as well, and of course, international community that are watching closely with these developments. Would there be any level of military fragmentation?
One thing I know is that this general will not sit by and now be taking orders from maybe a sergeant that couldn't even come near him when he was a general. So the best option for him is to resign. And resigning will place him on watch list of the current government in Southern Sudan. And when he's on watch list, he will find a way of escaping. All these things, just remind yourself in the days to come. And then he will now constitute himself as a rebel outside the country. So it's going to generate a lot of crisis. He didn't realize what he was doing when he was doing this.
On the part of the military or the part of the government itself?
On the part of the government itself. Because there will be insurgency. There will be reprisal. There will be an upsurge of rebellion. against his government.
Let's talk about the decree that this man has been making so far. I'm talking about Salva Kiir, the president, clearly without even explanation of any kind. Does this decree clearly state constitutional government? Really, is this the death of constitutional government? Because he's just pulling out decrees without explaining why, even to the people, who again he governs at one hand.
They don't hold their allegiance to the people. That's why it is called decree. It's not a law that emanates from the people. That's why it's called decree.
So that's clearly.
So you could wake up tomorrow again and promulgate 4 decrees. Is there anybody to challenge them? Who is that in parliament that wants to challenge? That's why it's called decree. It's not a constitutional matter. So it doesn't require your input as a lawyer to help him draft. Whatever he fancies, he calls somebody, I want to put this as a law from this moment. And that person will draft. And then it becomes the law.
Quite interesting. Well,
That's why when somebody who will say he prefers military to civilian administration, that person was not born during military era.
No, but again, I want to jump off this conversation, but what you just said now, it brings to mind several things. Under the democratic rule, as against the military rule, if we're to juxtapose economies, which would you, of course, because you've been around for a while, which would you clearly state should the people embrace and embrace well? Now, owing to good governance, basically, that's the yardstick I really want you to come from.
You see, the worst civilian administration is better than the best military administration.
Help us walk around it.
Yes, you see, we always suffer some level of amnesia when there's a gap between where we are coming from and where we are. There was a time in this country that everything I'm saying here, I have to mind my language. I have to. In fact, in some cases when I know that you are bringing up any controversial issue, I would escape. Because people were being picked right from the studios. People were picked in their offices. Media houses were shut down for many months. And some journalists were declared missing. You never get to see even their shirts till today. But in a civilian dispensation, no matter how terrible you are, people will still talk. You think if it were to be during military era, those minors that were kept in the prison and arraigned in court, that due to public outcry, the president had to say they should release them the following day. If it were to military era, it would be special tribunal that would try them. And you and I will not be there. And they will just give them death sentence. By the evening, already the stakes are made. And they will be tied to stake and shot.
There are concerns about the fact that democratic government thus far in Africa has not really been...
It's slow.
So,
I agree. It's slow. It's cumbersome. And because of the plural nature of it.
And even with several funds in it.
You know, that's what I'm saying. But it's just that we're having the worst of democracy in Africa. Democracy should aid development, should fast-track development.
Okay.
If it's properly practiced and if there is proper engagement between the leaders and the led. But unfortunately here, it's the winner takes all, and then the led is sidelined in the process of government.
I don't even want to go into the legislative part of democracy in Africa, because that, again, some quarters have said, is another arm of the executive, which I bet...
No, there is an unholy marriage between the executive and the legislative arm in Africa.
These are people who are elected to serve the people.
How are they elected? Is it not the godfathers in the executive arm of government that sponsored their election? So how will they now go there and begin to challenge? How would you go there and challenge your sponsor?
I would have loved to hear your view on the Tanzania situation, but unfortunately, we are pressed for time. This is where we have to draw anchor on the analysis segment of the African News this beautiful afternoon.